Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. So we are back with Paris History, Avec, Hemingway. I have Claudine on the show again, and today we are talking about Rose Valland, which is someone I had no idea about before Claudine brought her up. So I'm excited to share her history with you. It will kind of be a good follow-up episode to Coco Chanel. I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm very excited. Rose Valland is probably one of my very favorite people. Like, definitely, I say this about a lot of people, but definitely like the top 5.
She's up there.
She's way up there. And Rose Valland she does not get enough due for what she did for France. She's just an absolutely amazing person. But she was born in 1898 in a little town in the Auvergne region. And she was an only child. So at the time when she was born in 1898, it was very different. Like a lot of these ladies we talk about at that period of time, us being able to just, you grow up and you go off to school and you go off to college, like that's taken for granted now, which back then it wasn't something as a woman you really got to do. Mm-hmm. So her mom ended up actually applying for grants so that she could go to university. So it'd be okay. So in 1918, she enrolled in the National School of Fine Arts in Lyon. Yeah. And she went to school there, studied there for all 4 years. After that, she ended up going to the École Beaux-Arts in Paris. While she was there, she was also teaching. So she was going to school, and then she was also teaching drawing.
She's a busy woman.
She's a very busy woman. And after that, she ended up going to the University of Paris and studying art again, and then Greek and medieval archaeology. And then after that, she ended up going to the École de Louvre, which I would just absolutely die to be able to go to. So she was doing nothing but studying and absorbing everything that had to do with art. She was an incredibly smart woman. She ended up traveling to Italy and to Greece and to Germany. And she ended up being able to just like perfectly speak the language. Like without really even studying it, she was speaking Italian and German.
She was very smart.
She was a very, very smart woman. So in 1932, she ended up becoming a volunteer to the curator at the Jeu de Paume Museum. So today, the Jeu de Paume Museum is in the Tuileries, which it still was back then, but now it's kind of more of a contemporary photography museum. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was a fine arts. It was basically attached to the Louvre. Fine arts. It had a lot of like the old masters, and so she was in there working with the curator. So here it is, in 1930s of 1940, she, up to 1940, she's still working there. And 1940, as you know, would also be the time of World War II. So as we just talked about in our last podcast, our friend Coco Chanel and everything that she was doing with the Germans, this is a tale exactly the opposite.
She went the other end of the spectrum.
So in 1940, she was just there working at the Jeu de Paume, helping the curator. And while she was there, she would also make lists of everything that they had in the museum. She was curating exhibitions, 15 different international exhibitions of paintings that were going all over the world. This was, 1939, 1940. So she was doing all of this stuff at the time. Then all of a sudden, World War II breaks out. And going back a little bit, Hitler, before the war even started, he had wanted to be an artist himself. So he had ended up like enrolling in an art school and was wasn't accepted. And I think it was kind of like the beginning of the end
of his anger.
Yeah, and he had these drawings, and they're actually like in a vault in a museum in Washington D.C. They're like probably will never see the light of day, thankfully.
I want to see them though.
I know, but there's this amazing documentary I've watched like 100 times in my life called "The Rape of Europa."
You were telling me about that. I need to watch it.
And I remember telling a friend, I was like, I'm watching this amazing documentary called The Rape of Europa. They're like, the what?
Like, that sounds graphic.
Like, no, it's not about that. So, but it's in that documentary, it does kind of show some of his paintings that he did. But he was obsessed with art because he also thought, like to be worldly and sophisticated, you have to like art.
Mm-hmm.
Too. So he early on, this was in like the 30s, he ended up having a couple different art historians basically make a list for him of the best paintings in the world and where they were. So, it had, these are ones in, Belgium and Paris and London and all of these different places. And this was before the war. And so when you actually like look at that in that list, that's kind of exactly what happened with World War II and where he went.
So he picked his places based on the best art for what he was going to occupy.
As he wanted to create this huge museum in Linz, which was basically going to be the Führer's art museum. It was going to be filled with the best art in the entire world, like thousands and thousands of sculptures and paintings. And so he had this big list. So as, Hitler's marching across Europe and they, here he's getting close to Paris, the main curator for the Musée National, Jacques Jouard, ended up they put this plan in place. They did this in World War II too, as well, when they evacuated art from the Louvre. But for World War II, they did this a huge, immense project. They brought in, they closed down the Louvre one day for one day, saying they were closing it for cleaning, and then ended up bringing volunteers, everybody. And they basically just completely took everything out of the Louvre.
So they saved the art.
They saved all the art. They shipped it off down to the south, to the Loire Valley. It kept on moving. That's a whole nother amazing story that I completely obsessed with. Yeah. But as they're coming into Paris, they get there, the Louvre's empty. Where is everything? So, but other small museums were not empty, and neither were the homes owned by the Jews. And also a lot of the big, huge art galleries in Paris at the time were also owned by Jews.
Yeah.
So here these guys come through, and Rosenberg is one of the Reichsdieter Rosenberg. He was basically just obsessed with collecting art, and taking it for himself. Too.
Yeah.
And under the guise of that he's doing it for Hitler. And they tried to keep it all up from the outside. It looked like all in the up and up. And they were, basically if they shipped the Jews out, they were basically once they were gone, they put them in jail or they shipped them out. They gave up their citizenship. So now everything that they have in their home is free property.
Anybody can take it and steal it.
So they could take whatever they want. So they would go into these places and take all the art. Well, they started amassing all this art and they didn't know where to put it. So the Jeu de Paume ended up becoming this depot. And it was at first they had some of it in the Louvre, and then they ended up putting in the Jeu de Paume. And so here is Rose Valland working there. And she's kind of this shorter little, they called her a little mouse. She was kind of shorter. She was in her early 40s. She would wear her hair up in a little bun, have these little tiny glasses. There was really nothing exceptional, where she'd stand out, which was the best thing possible. So, here's all of they're taking things the Rosenbergs they took all of these paintings from the Rosenbergs, the Rothschilds, they took 5,000 pieces of art from the house of the Rothschilds. And so it all started coming to the Jeu de Paume. And then Goring, who was one of the worst, would come through, and basically he'd come to Paris all the time and just come there to go shopping, would come there and they'd set up the Jeu de Paume kind of like an actual art exhibition, and he'd come through and pick out which things he'd wanted.
Wow. And so he could just it was like a flea market, a estate sale.
Yeah, it was basically just kind of okay, yeah, we'll just take whatever we want. So here's Rose Valland is there. She's almost invisible. She's very quiet. They have no idea that she speaks German. So she just kind of kept to herself. She had, again, she was incredibly, incredibly smart. She had like a photographic memory for seeing things and hearing things. So she would go home every single night. She'd go home to her little tiny apartment and she would basically make a list. And she had this book that she kept all of this information. And so anything that she saw and heard that day ended up going in this book. She would put the name of the victim, of where this was taken from, the name of the painting, how many paintings, where the paintings were getting shipped off to, who was the agent that was involved in doing it, how many trains were all of it going in, what was out written on the boxes, everything.
She knew all of that. She wrote all that down.
Yeah, she put everything down in these books. And she would just sit there and she'd go in there and just soak all this stuff up. And she would sometimes take their carbons out of the garbage can and she'd decipher those and write down.
So smart. I can't believe no one's ever heard of this woman.
I know. Yeah. I mean, even in France, she's not really that well known, which is just boggles my mind. But, like Hitler had this whole thing. He had this whole thing that he hated, what he called degenerate art. And it was basically the modern masters. So it was, Matisse and Van Gogh and Picasso. And they would take all of these things from different museums. And they one time had a huge bonfire. And this just completely hurts my heart even thinking about it. They had a bonfire in the Tuileries where they just burned those paintings.
Wow. So the paintings they weren't able to to hide basically were just burnt. And we lost so much.
Yeah. And they thought that they called it degenerate because it's like, here's Matisse and here's Picasso with his, cubism and stuff. And for Hitler, he was very classically art trained. And he only wanted here's a landscape and here it's like, he didn't want anything that looked different. Like this is the ideal vision of life should be. Yeah. So a Picasso and a Van Gogh, all of those were not. They were unacceptable. Yeah. So they literally, she watched them burn a pile of these famous people's paintings.
Yeah. And she had to do something about it. She wasn't just going to stand by.
No. And so she ended up she had people she knew somebody's its brother was working at the train yard. She would end up trying to get word to them so that they would try to reroute the trains to different directions. She basically put her life on the line. If they found out what she was doing, she would have been killed instantly.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she secretly saved the art world.
Yeah, she did. So she spent the entire war there. She was there until the end of the war doing that every single day.
And did she ever come close to being caught? Did you read anything about that?
No.
She was good.
Yeah, she was very good. I think it was just because, we'll post up a picture of her. I mean, she's just adorable little thing, but she's not, she didn't look she didn't stick out.
Yeah, that was the best asset to have. She was this mousy little unassuming woman that was French. And it's okay, just do your work, lady. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So, and so then the end of the war is going on and there was a group of men and there was a movie a few years ago made about it, a Hollywoodized version, I should say, called The Monuments Men. And The Monuments Men, while in the movie it has George Clooney, where there's never anything wrong with that.
I'm very okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, and the movie's a good movie. It's a good movie to get the gist of the situation. Kate Blanchett plays a character that's very based on Rose Valland, but her name's not, Rose Valland. But it gives you a really good idea of exactly what this was. So she ended up having all of these notebooks. So the war ends and she was able to help the Allies. She was able during the war to tell them where things were so that the Allies wouldn't bomb certain trains or attack certain areas where she knew that they were hiding the art. So Hitler, they would send this art back to Germany and Australia. They were putting them in salt mines. They were putting all of this art, just hiding it in places. And she knew where all of it was.
That's so wild because she had kept track of it the whole time and they were able to use that. So once the war ended, they were able to track it all back down.
Yeah. So she ended up working with the Allies. They ended up sending her to Germany. They sent her to Italy. They sent her to all of these different places for 5 years. She was traveling. The Ministry of War in France ended up making her a captain and she was in charge of she was the head of the art recovery and was named as a fine arts officer.
Wow.
And
I'm surprised
so
she doesn't have a museum named
I
after
know.
her or
I know.
something.
So, but she's just like, it's just amazing. And she did this for years. And then she ended up setting up this whole, like, did everything she could to get the art back to the people that it belonged to.
So what happened to her? Did she ever marry, or was her
No.
life just all around art and traveling the world? I mean, it sounds fascinating. Who cares if she
Yeah.
got married? But I mean, I'm curious, like when all this ended, I mean, how old was she? Was only in her 40s and
She,
then
yeah. So she was only like 45 or so. She ended up meeting a British woman named Joyce Eyre, and she was working for the U.S. Embassy as a translator. And
Mhm.
they became involved, and they lived together. She lived in a little apartment in the fifth, really close to the Jardin de Plan.
Mhm.
There is a plaque on the building of where she used to live, but they lived there together, and she kind of just stayed really quiet. Jacques Jouard set up a whole division where it basically put her in charge of it. That was in charge of like restitution and getting
Wow.
the work back to everybody.
So she was like set for life with a
Yeah.
career, just, doing right by people with their artwork.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she worked as a curator for the National Museum and the protection of works. I mean, she basically, it was her life work, and that's all she did was to do everything she could. After the war, over 60,000 pieces of art and sculptures and objets d'art, like furniture and everything else, because the Nazis literally took everything. I mean, they would
Mm.
take Jewish relics and keepsakes and everything. They took everything.
And is there a place that kind of recognizes this? I mean, I know once she found the art, she gave it back to the original owners or they went back to museums, but is there one museum where it's like really relevant to everything being
Um,
collected again?
Well, I mean, there is some of it. I mean, a lot of it did go back. Some of it ended up coming back. More than like 40,000 of the pieces ended up going into the trust of the Musée National of France.
Hmm.
And still to this day, there is some in the Louvre. So it all came back. And then there's a whole huge group in a lot of different countries in Europe and in the United States that still work to this day trying to find the owners, like the descendants of the people that owned these paintings and
They're still
pieces of
trying to
art.
get it back to these
They're
poor people.
still doing it now, 75 years later.
I know there's a lot of debate about, after the war that a lot of art was misplaced around the world, like the wrong people got the
Mhm.
art, the wrong country. I'm curious, like, is that the same in France? Like a lot of the stuff we have in France, is it the same story? Because the war kind of disorganized everything. So it's just like, mine,
I mean,
keeping this.
I'm sure there's definitely some of that, but I think because of her records
Hmm.
and what she had, I think that a lot of the stuff that did come back did. Now the Louvre itself has over almost 1,000 different pieces of art and sculpture to this day that you could still find in the Louvre that would belong to Jewish families.
Hmm.
So there's two tiny rooms that's off the Richelieu wing, and it's completely nondescript. And I ended up finding something about it on the Louvre website one time, and then I was like, oh my god, I gotta go find this. And you go into these two rooms, and there is a big plaque on the wall that kind of tells the story about it. And if you go through the Louvre and you look close on the cards, every single thing in the Louvre has a different identification number, like if it's the RF for France or whatever. But anytime you see anything that says MRN, which is the Musée National Récupération, that basically means that they're still trying to find the owners of it. So
Wow.
a lot of these pieces have been put into the ownership of the Louvre and other museums in Paris, just so they can still take care of it and restoration and make sure it's okay. But everything is still there. So you go into these two little rooms in the Louvre, and there's 31 paintings in there that are all art that was looted. But you could
So,
still find a lot of the paintings just within the Louvre. Like anytime I go, and I'm obsessed with everything in the Louvre, and I look at every single plaque, and every time I see one that says MNR, I write all the information down. Like I'm going to become like the Rose Valland of the
I was going to say,
US.
you're the new Rose.
But
So
it's
could
pretty
people just
amazing.
show up and be like, "Oh yeah, my
Yeah,
grandpa
yeah.
had a picture like that"? Like, how do you prove
I
it
mean, I
was
think you
yours?
definitely have to prove it. Every year, a couple times a year, I come across a story where they found somebody. They found a descendant. They've like got it all. They've returned a piece of art. Like there's stories of people that have find these things in a wall. That this was a Nazi soldier, and he took all these paintings, and there was a story. I can't even remember where it was. I want to say it was like somebody in Austria, and his father ended up taking all these paintings, and the son basically lived like off the grid in his apartment, and he needed money, so he decided to try to sell one of them, and it basically was like ding 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 ding,
red flag.
yeah. And it was like, I mean, still to this day, I think they discovered this 5 or 6 years, they still haven't released everything they found.
Wow, because he had so much.
He has so many things, and I think that they're just trying to figure out where it goes. So there is some people that there is some controversy about it, and about, like, somebody was saying, well, I don't think the Louvre is actually doing everything they can to find the people. But, you know, it's like the country, and it goes for many countries, they do have a staff of people that are trying to do this. They have had exhibits before where somebody has walked in and said, wait a minute, you know, that belonged to my family.
Wouldn't that be amazing to walk into the Louvre and be like, that was my grandpa's bedroom?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so wild. So you're basically telling me Hitler was just a frustrated artist, and like war could have been avoided if we could have gave that guy some credit. He was like,
maybe let the jerk go to art school, guys.
Yeah, come on, respect the charcoal drawing.
Yeah,
you know?
But
we could have avoided a war.
He was so obsessed with it, and there was one painting by Vermeer, and it's called The Astronomer, that he was like obsessed with having this painting, and the painting was owned by the Rothschilds, and Goering went in there and basically took the painting himself, and it was in the Jeu de Paume waiting to go, and she had like the note on it, like the day it arrived was on February 3rd, 1941. It went into a crate. The crate was marked H13, H for Hitler. That meant the crate was going to him. If it had a G, it meant it was going to Goering.
Yeah.
So she had like all of these notes. It ended up coming back, like it was in Austria in the salt mine. It ended up getting back to the Rothschilds. They later ended up giving it to France, to the state, to offset, taxes after their death. And today it's in the Louvre.
That's so crazy. All that work to get it back.
Yeah.
And I mean, Hitler to be so obsessed with art, he's got all these other things going on, like trying to conquer the world. And at the same time, he's like, all right, make sure you get me this, framed piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should have put his focus into conquering the world. Maybe that could help.
But it's so crazy because I guess on the back of the painting is still today, and it hangs in the Louvre, is a black swastika, and it says ERR, which was basically what he put together, this group of people that their whole job was to go loot art.
Man, that makes me want to watch Monuments Men again. But I'm still annoyed that Rose didn't get enough credit. I mean, come on, France. Do you think it could have had anything to do with the fact that she was a lesbian? Like, was that kind of swept under the carpet? Maybe she didn't want the spotlight.
Yeah, I don't know. And I know there is a group of people that are trying to do, like give her due. There is a really huge plaque on the outside of the Jeu de Paume. Not just a plaque that said Rose Valland 1945 or something like that. It actually it's a pretty good size. It was just installed in 2005 by the Minister of Culture, and it kind of tells her story. So, but it's, I've stood there before taking a picture. The first time I saw it, I think I cried a little bit because she's just such if it wasn't for her, you can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what would have happened to all this stuff? We wouldn't have it today.
Yeah, we wouldn't have any of that today. And there's like a passage named after her in the 17th. That's it.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if, you said she was like this mousy, unassuming woman. Maybe she didn't want the attention. Maybe, she was just so passionate. She said, forget about it. And also, like, obviously being gay back then wasn't as acceptable as today. So maybe she didn't want the spotlight. She just wanted to live her life and appreciate art.
Yeah. I mean, France did knight her for the Légion d'honneur. Like, she's a member of that. She was given the Medal of the French Resistance. The U.S. also gave her a Medal of Liberty. And Germany also gave her a Medal of the Order of Merit. So she definitely was like appreciated. And, if you watch that documentary, you've got, they show some of the actual monuments men. I don't know when it was done, probably at least 10 years ago or so. But they show some of the monuments men basically saying, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have known what to do or where to go or where to find to save these things.
And do you know if there's any books written about her?
There is. She actually wrote a book herself called Le Fond de l'Art, and it's all in French, unfortunately. But she wrote a whole book about it, and you could actually still in the book. I'm flipping through it right now. You actually see her handwriting, like copies of the pages that she wrote, and there's pictures of the art that was part of it. There's pictures. I'll post some of the pictures that are inside from the Jeu de Paume. It's pretty amazing. Like it's literally floor to ceiling paintings, and then there's rows of these tables that have like easels in the middle that are just painting, 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 painting of all the stuff that was coming through there.
How wild. Yeah, you definitely need to post that on the
Yeah.
website and people need to see that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And did she live a long life? Did she die old?
She did. She actually lived, she and her Joyce ended up moving out just right outside of Paris, just like 14 miles outside of Paris to Ri-Orangy. And she ended up, her partner died in 1977 and Rose died in 1980.
She lived a long time.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah, she was
crap.
82 years old. So she, then I'm just like, oh, I wish I would have met her.
I know. We were alive during the same time. Let's hang out.
Why didn't I not know this when I was like 3 years old?
How could
but
you?
yeah, so she, I mean, there's the plaque for her, and that's about it. There is in the town that she grew up in, there is a house that I've seen pictures of that on the outside they have like a picture of her, and then it has like a picture of some of like they did like a reproduction of the art that she saved, and then there's another house that has pictures of reproductions of art that has never been found. I mean, there's some of the huge stuff. There's another Vermeer painting that has never been found. There's quite a lot of things that have just been lost forever. So, they did get a lot of stuff back, but a lot of it they never did. I read this one book called The Lost Museum, and it's basically all about the different art that, were by huge masters that's never been seen again because of the Nazis.
Well, there's probably some very rich people just looking at it, having, a nightcap.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
This is mine now.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to visit my living room.
Yeah. But it's just like, I mean, she's just so, I mean, I just think everything about her, what she did is just so amazing. And the fact that that everything that she could just remember and the details of the stuff, and then how that was used to help the Allies to, not bomb these different places and to save, it makes me so happy to know that was the importance put on something so cultural as art. When you go to the Louvre and you're standing in front of Vermeer's Astronomer, and it's not a big painting, and you just are standing there and you're looking at it, and I might start crying again, but you just are looking at it and you're thinking exactly where you're looking at the same thing that what has gone through all of these hands, that was hiding an assault mine that ended up coming back. It's just kind of amazing. And I just don't, it's like, I just hope people still think about that and care about that today. Cause it is a pretty big thing. Without having that and that culture in everybody's life, what really, it just makes life so much more beautiful.
I completely agree. I feel like things are so much more interesting when you know the story, what happened, and especially in museums. This is why I'm all about tour guides, because I care so much more when I'm looking at that picture and know, okay, wow, that happened? What? This is here? I can stand this close to it? I mean, it's fascinating. And I hope when people visit Paris, they'll come look at some of this art and they'll visit those museums, and definitely head over to Claudine's website, ClaudineHemingway.com, to check out the pictures. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, she's pretty. She needs a statue. I'm going to start a campaign. She needs a statue.
Kickstarter.
The Rose Valland statue.
Hey, I think we got something brewing here. We're getting creative. Let's get to it.
Yeah. We know somebody that makes some sculptures, don't we?
Oh, yeah, we definitely do. I actually just interviewed a couple of sculptor people. So
it needs to be grand, huge.
I would love for it to be ginormous.
Yeah. She's pretty amazing. And after knowing everything and listening to the story about Coco, it's a much better
happy ending.
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Claudine. And make sure to head over to Claudine's website and see more information about all this and those pictures from that book. Fascinating. And until next time.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's Bleu, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.